Good day, viewers. This is Mr. Obelovde, the Deputy Director of Programs Gorilla Brain Lectures and also the Dean of the Faculty of Sciences. And I'm here to talk to you about the modalities that is required for students after you may have written JAMB. Of course, you know that JAMB is the examination body that is in charge of admission procedures in Nigeria. And this is to ensure that the very best hands are given admission in our tertiary institutions. Now, students who have written JAMB, I want you to have this at the back of your mind. Regardless of the score you've gotten in JAMB, it's not a total definition of who you are. It doesn't make you a failure, it doesn't make you a success. It's only, an judgment of your perception of those subjects per time. Now, also understand that different schools have different parameters for admission processes. If, for instance, you wanted to go to school A, and the requirement for school A, you don't meet to the requirement of school A, you can also explore school B, school C, school D. It doesn't mean that your world has come to an end. There are public universities, there are state universities, and of course, there are private universities, depending on what you want to do. Firstly, at the point of registration of your JAMB, it is very paramount that you fill your institutions of choices, first, second, and third, as well as your courses. Most schools in Nigeria often allude to those who have taken them or chosen them as the preferred university. So that is key. If, for instance, you want to go to University of Benin and you chose University of Benin as a first choice, usually their cutoff mark, which we call cutoff mark, talks about the least admissible score that University of Benin would have to accept you, to write their pursuit ME. That's 200. Let's assume you don't score up to 200. The best thing to do is do a change of course or a change of institution rather, and place the school that would accept your requisite score as your first choice. That is the first point or the first modalities to do in order for you to stand a chance to securing admission. Now, let's make an assumption. You scored 250 in your JAMB and you intend to go for University of Benin. We are using University of Benin as our case study, and you want to study medicine. You have written JAMB, you have seen your score. What next to do? Now, the admission procedure is in two formats. Whatever you scored in JAMB is divided by 8, and then whatever you scored in the pursuit ME is divided by 2. So your 250 will be divided by 8. That will give you the actual score you have as at now. And then whatever you're going to score in the pursuit ME will be divided by 2. When you sum them together, it will give you your aggregate score, which will be used for admission. Have it also in the back of your mind that there are some schools that do not write pursuit ME exams. They, in fact, adjust students basically on their JAMB scores and their WAEC results. Example, it's Abracadabra State University. Last year, that was their mode of assessment. For students that had A, that was 6 points. Those that had B1, that was 5 points and thereabout. So you also have to see to it that your WAEC result is good enough, especially if you are going for competitive courses like medicine, nursing, pharmacy, law, accountancy, and some engineering courses. And I also want to state here that there is no course that it's not relevant. It depends on your passion, it depends on your goal, it depends on your aspiration. A lot of students often say what they gave me versus what I wanted. It's not necessarily what they gave you. It is what your score, placed you in, or the cadre that your score placed you in. Now you have written your JAMB, and you are waiting the next response. The next response naturally will be preparations for pursuit ME. I often tell students that you don't, lay down your gauntlet until you have gained admission. We have seen situations where students who scored very high in JAMB but became lackadaisical, became complacent because they felt they did so well, and therefore it affected their overall performance in securing admission. Let me give you a clear example. Somebody may have had 300 in JAMB, and then another student may have had 240. Interestingly, if you divide 300 by 8 and you divide 240 by 8, the difference between the person who had 300 and the person who had 240 may not be more than 8, as a mark. Meanwhile, during the post-UTME, the one who had 240 kept studying, kept going for classes, kept reading, and then performed excellently well and probably had 96. Meanwhile, the one who had 300, because he felt he had arrived, was no longer studious, was no longer serious, ended up getting 60 or scoring 60. When you do that division by 2, you discover that the one who had 240 in JAMB automatically would be ahead of the one who had 300. And you would say, oh, how is that possible? Because of the modalities. This is what students must note. To note that after JAMB, you have to get a good lecture to attend, you have to keep reading your books, and you have to keep studying for you to be able to secure your desired course. Again, you must also take into consideration what was the course, the score for that particular course you want to study in your preferred university. We are using University of Benin as a case study. Let's assume I wanted to study medicine. Last year, the score for medicine was 82.5. If I had 200 in this present JAMB, if I divide 200 by 8, that will give me 25. That simply means even if I were to get 100 over 100 in post-UTME and I divide it by 2, which gives me 50, the summation will be 75. There is no way 75 would give me medicine, comparing it with what was obtained last year. So what would be the most sensible thing for me to do? It's either for me to have a change of course, which JAMB avails us the opportunity to do, and change it to courses that I think I can easily get the score, or better still, look for institutions that would accept that my score and give me my desired course. The choice is yours. Again, we must also understand that admission has different modalities. There is a place for merit, there is a place for catchment area, there is a place for educationally less developed state. I always encourage students to ensure that when they are filling their forms, they fill schools that are within their areas of origin. In that way, the catchment area policy helps influence their score. Let's assume University of Benin. If you are from Edo State and you pick University of Benin and you scored 81 and you wanted to go for medicine as your aggregate, with the catchment law policy, you will definitely get the medicine, even if the cutoff mark is 82.5, because you are within the catchment area. There's always a proviso. Also, if you are from the northern part of Nigeria, especially those that fall within the less educationally developed states, you also have some certain advantages. I always let students understand that the best way to perform better in your post-UTME, in order for you to stand a good chance, is for you to go through what other questions your school has given previously, other years, the questions they have given. Familiarize yourself with those questions. Get to understand the modes of operation of your school, their requirements. All of this will serve a better way to guide you. Most importantly, what students fail to do: admission is not rocket science. Admission is a process. And that process starts with you uploading your WAEC or O-level result on JAMB portal, which you call JAMB CAPS. A lot of students always have this issue. Oh, they've done so well in JAMB and they just don't upload their O-level result on JAMB CAPS. If you do not upload your O-level on JAMB CAPS, there is no way your admission will be given by JAMB. And there is this controversy that parents often have. Is admission given by the institutions or given by JAMB? And I want to clarify it here. Admission is given by JAMB, but with understanding with the individual institutions. The institutions let JAMB in on what they expect from students, their standard, but it is JAMB's responsibility to ensure that those standards are met. That's why there is always a policy meeting between JAMB and universities, where they determine the cutoff point. One was held on Monday, May 11th, to determine what the necessary cutoff point will be for various institutions. Different schools have different cutoff marks, but your responsibility is to ensure that you are in line with the cutoff mark of your desired institution, and your O-level is uploaded on JAMB CAPS. Now, having uploaded your O-level, especially for those who use the awaiting result. Ensure that immediately your results are out, you go upload them. You then follow up on JAMB caps on a weekly basis to check if you have been given admission immediately after your post-UTME examination. For schools that write post-UTME, and for those that do not write post-UTME, just keep your minds open and keep going to the JAMB caps to check if you have been given admission. Now, there are two ways admission could be given on JAMB caps. Direct admission, where you just check your admission status and you say admitted, and sometimes under transferred students. When you check transferred students, what that simply means is that your university is recommending you to a different department that you did not apply for based on your score and your performance. Now, it's at your discretion to either accept it or reject it. A lot of students have missed out on this opportunity because they were not aware. They just checked the admission status and saw not admitted. They did not check the transferred student column and did not know that their university of choice had recommended a different course or department for them, which they would have naturally loved to also take as a plan B, but they did not have this information. So please always ensure that your JAMB cap is your best friend. Also, I want us to understand something that always affects a lot of students, while preparing for post-UTME, which is key and which is the next thing to do immediately after your JAMB, is the fact that a lot of students do not research on the kind of questions that their desired school presents to them in post-UTME. There are some schools that present an aptitude test. There are some schools that present, verbal reasoning. There are some schools that present the knowledge of the subject areas that you want to do. And I want to state here that post-UTME does not have a syllabus. It's at the discretion of the school to determine their parameters for assessing the caliber of students that they want to admit into their institutions. And I want students to have this confidence. If you can pass your O-level, you can pass JAMB. You can definitely pass the post-UTME. Fear has been one of the factors that have always affected students' confidence. Oh, I don't know, I've heard so much about post-UTME. No, just relax. It's just for them to ascertain if you are good enough to come into the department and also to study your desired course. Again, parents, please, let's not be insistent on setting courses for our wards. If a child's capacity is not up to the standard of studying medicine in a particular institution, and that child wants to study radiography, physiotherapy, all of these are also equally good courses. Give them that opportunity. Let them explore. You never can tell, what and where their destiny lies, provided that student is willing and ready to give his best. We've had a lot of persons who graduate with first class from institutions in courses you felt are not renowned, as it were, and ended up being the breadwinners in their families against all odds. Let's have this confidence as students. Let's work hard, let's research more, and keep that gauntlet running, until the end. For those who couldn't score to 200, also there are state schools, there are polytechnics that you can, choose from. The least polytechnic right now takes about 130. There are those who take up to 100 as a score, and I believe every good student should have been able to score 100 and above. Don't always insist that if it's not a university degree, then it's not a degree. You can go to a polytechnic, you can go to a state school. Just look at the cost and also the convenience and see what you are able to do, and I trust you will be glad you do. On part 2 of what to do now that you are done with your JAMB. And in this part 2, I'll be looking at some of the secrets of admissions that students fail to know about universities. In the part 1, we talked about what to do, taking your studies more seriously, ensuring that you do your very best in your post-UTME exam itself. And of course, I also explained, the criteria for admission with regards to both the JAMB score and the post-UTME, forming major constituents for your aggregate score. Now, for your admission to be realistic, I need you to understand that you must follow to the latter the instructions of your desired institutions, especially for the post-UTME application. If, for instance, your school insists that the passport background must be red background and you upload a white background, from that very act, you have just denied yourself admission. It's as simple as that. I've often told a lot of students that the schools or the institutions are looking for reasons why you should not be given admission. You should not be the one giving them those reasons. Rather, you should justify reasons why you should be considered above every other person. So your guidelines, the instructions given in the filling of the form should be followed to the latter. And I also said again in part 1 that it's important that you revise the past questions of the institution of choice. I need students to understand that you cannot, be in an environment that you are not conversant with. So it's imperative that you revise the previous post-UTME past questions of your institution for probably the past 5 to 10 years. If you're able to go through, it gives you a modality, it gives you, a dynamics to work with in terms of your preparations. And then, of course, you mustn't also forget that there are these ethics that students must uphold during the course of the exams. One, it's coming early to the exam hall. You must have had a proper rest, and of course, you must come with confidence and not fear. And then when you come early, come well dressed and ensure that you are at your best. Now, if you need students to also understand that in securing admission, JAMB has made it a lot easier for students these days, in the sense that you can easily do a change of institution from institution A to institution B. If you've taken the exams for institution A, which is your preferred institution, and you didn't do so well, nothing stops you from going to JAMB and having a change of institution to another school, comparatively, which you feel obliged and you feel easy to attend, you feel confident to attend, and that school had not done their post-UTME. You have that opportunity, and you can do that for as many institutions per time that is possible and available. That also enlarges or broadens the horizon of your admission into the university. I've also said in part A that it's important that after your post-UTME exam, you go upload your O-level result. It is essential. If your O-level result is not uploaded, even if your desired school of choice forwards your name to JAMB, JAMB will not be able to upload your name, for you to see admitted or admission in progress. So it's important you always upload your O-level result. And this is occasioned by the fact that over time, there are a lot of persons who have been offered admission, but their O-levels were incompatible with their choice of course, thereby making the institutions lose that privileged space or opportunity for that course, which would have been given to some other person. So now, it's always imperative that you upload your O-level result on JAMB CAPS. I've also explained this for students that have issues with their email, because you cannot access your JAMB CAPS without your email. It's important that you'd fill in the correct email that you have the password to and you have access to at the point of filling your forms. This is very important. Now, JAMB is working on trying to make corrections of email possible, but for now, that privilege is not there. So if you make a mistake with your email, it denies you the opportunity of being able to access all of these informations at your convenience, maybe with your phones or with your assistants in your house. It then means you would always go to a CBT, accredited CBT centers, to carry out these actions and activities. And what are the actions? To ensure your O-level result is uploaded, and also to ensure that you constantly check if you've been given admission. Note, if you do not accept your admission on JAMB CAPS, it will not reflect on the school portal. And if for any reason the school had given you inclinations or indications that you have been given admission, you must go rectify it on JAMB CAPS and ensure you've accepted that admission for it to be legit and for it to be authentic. Then, most importantly, I need students to understand that admission itself, it is survival of the fittest. It's not truly the true test of your knowledge. If a student is not able to do well this year, probably to get your desired course, you still have the next year and other years to try. But have this in the back of your mind. Read as though there is no God, and then pray as though you've not read. With both combinations, with your desire, with your passion, and with astute study, I believe you can achieve any course of your choice in Nigerian institution. I wish you the very best, even as you continue on this channel. God bless you.